Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rowan Petts, Executive Director here at the Australian Chamber of Commerce in South Korea. 1 month after our initial International Women's Day event, Choose the Challenge, Exploring Women's Leadership in Australia and Korea, it is my honour to introduce a special follow-up event, Champions of Change, Male Leaders Champion Gender Equality in Their Fields. Moderated by Joe Billing, Director and Co-CEO of JOST Co and AustCham's Vice Chair, we are joined by 4 very prominent members of the business community here today. Alfred Bae, Head of Research and Analysis at ANZ Korea. Felix Busch, General Manager at the Millennium Hilton Seoul. Ken Nam of Counsel at Herbert Smith Freehills in Seoul. And Andrew Wagner, Investment Director and Korea Country Head of Blueleaf Energy Asia. Understanding that we all have responsibility for promoting the benefits of workplace diversity, I hope today's session really encourages a robust discussion on how each of us, both as individuals and as organizations, can help support a more equal, diverse, and inclusive workplace environment. Before I hand it over to our moderator, I would like to encourage all our viewers who have any questions to join in the discussion by placing any questions in the Q&A box below. So I can hand it over now to Joe, our moderator. Joe.
Gotta have it nailed. But anyway, thank you, Rowan. And it's great to be here, as you said, 1 month after International Women's Day, where, as we know, across the globe, communities celebrated the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women, as well as marked a call to action for accelerating women's equality. International Women's Day, I found out when I was hosting that webinar, has occurred for well over a century, with the first International Women's Day gathering in 1911, where over 1 million people attended. So exactly 1 month ago, we hosted a webinar with some impressive females that were leading the charge on ensuring that we get this thing called gender equality sorted so that we don't need an International Women's Day for another 100 years. So I think it's pretty fitting here to be here now with some equally impressive males that are also leading the charge to sponsor, to mentor and to champion females in their organisations and their industries for the same purpose. I started the last webinar by sharing a story about the fact that my 2 young daughters couldn't understand the need for an International Women's Day, as it was completely nonsensical to them. Their question was, aren't boys and girls just treated the same and they can do whatever they want to do? Why is it that we can't extend this non-biased, innocent view into adulthood? So let's see if our 4 panellists today can help me with this question so that I can answer it more eloquently and continue our discussion on women's equality in the context of both Australia and the Republic of Korea. As we touched on last time, both countries are at varying stages of workplace gender equality and have a lot to learn from each other. While Korea has seen slow societal change despite legislative attempts to reduce gendered inequality, Australia has now seen a decrease in global equity rankings and stagnation of gender equality progress due to a newfound reliance on voluntary initiatives over actual guiding legislation. So we're here today to discuss how the 2 countries both align and differ in the type and pace of change when it comes to gender equality. Overlaid with this is how the males in our organisations, our societies, and our lives can help to drive this change. What can they do to help? Numerous studies have shown that having a male advocate, a sponsor or a mentor increases the female's chance of promotion and success significantly. Today we'll explore what helps, what hinders, and what we can all do to impact the change. So I'll stop talking there and introduce you to some people that are actually out there doing it. I'm privileged to be joined by 4 men who are not only passionate about providing equal opportunities for women in their organisations, but also want to encourage more people to step up and do the same. Firstly, we have Alfred Bay. Alfred's the Head of Research and Analysis for ANZ Korea. He commenced his role here in Seoul in April 2017. Alfred joined ANZ in 2008 and has had a diverse range of experience during his career. He's worked in New Zealand, Fiji, Hong Kong and South Korea, primarily within the institutional business. Prior to joining ANZ Korea, Alfred was the Head of Business Management in ANZ Hong Kong. Thank you, Alfred, and welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have Felix Busch. Felix Busch. Felix is the General Manager of the Millennium Hilton here in Seoul. He's been in that role since September 2019, but has played a significant leadership role in Hilton for over 17 years now, having worked at Hilton properties in Europe, the UK and Australia, and most recently in Japan. Prior to being in Seoul, Felix was the general manager of the 460-room Hilton Nagoya, and before that, he was the hotel manager at the Hilton Sydney. I'm sure you'll all agree Felix is a very proactive member of the community and has been a long-time member of SCAL in numerous countries and the chair of the Business Programs Committee for the American Chamber of Commerce Chubu chapter in Japan, and he's also a fellow board member of AustCham Korea. Welcome, Felix.
Thank you so much, Jo.
Also joining us is Ken Nam. Ken is an of counsel with Herbert Smith Freehills Seoul office and heads up the firm's energy and corporate practice in Korea. Ken has had 15 years of experience in legal practice in both Korea and Australia and specialises in advising Korean and international companies on projects and cross-border transactions across a range of sectors, including energy and infrastructure, natural resources, power, finance, general corporate and M&A. Prior to Seoul, Ken was based in Herbert Smith Freehills Sydney office for 10 years. He's also serving in the role of office champion for the firm's pro bono and diversity and inclusivity initiatives, where Herbert Smith Freehills continues to be highly active across the Asia Pacific as well as globally. Thanks for joining us, Ken. Thank you. And lastly, we have Andrew Wagner with us today. Andrew is the investment director and country head of Blueleaf Energy Asia, having recently transferred from Macquarie Capital. Blueleaf Energy Asia is a wholly owned subsidiary of Macquarie, GIG, developing, financing and managing high-performance solar systems in the Asia-Pacific region. Prior to Blueleaf Energy, Andrew spent more than a decade advising clients on a range of mergers and acquisitions and strategic opportunities in Australia before transitioning to Macquarie Capital's Infrastructure and Energy Group based in Seoul in 2017 to support the growth of the green energy platform in Asia. Andrew managed Macquarie Capital's 50% owned and Korean-based organic food waste recycling and waste to energy platform Reclean Holdings, including as nominee board director, and recently led its solar and onshore wind development activities in Korea before transferring to Blueleaf. He's also a fellow member of AustCham Board of Directors. So welcome, Andrew, and thank you to all of our panellists for joining us today. Okay, now that we've met them all, I will get them to introduce themselves. So the theme for International Women's Day this year was Choose to Challenge, where we believe a challenged world is an alert world, and from challenge comes change. You're all contributing to this by challenging the status quo in your organisations. So we'd love to hear some of your stories and insights. Alfred, I'll pass to you first for some opening comments and for you to share some of your thoughts on how you've chosen to challenge the gender issue in your career.
Great. Thank you, Jo, for the warm welcome. And thank you to AustCham, its members and the audience today. Look, I'm honoured to be part of this discussion, and I look forward to the interaction with the panellists and also the audience. As Jo mentioned, my name is Alfred Bae, and I'm currently the head of research and analysis for ANZ Korea. I've been with the organisation for over 12 years, and during this time, I've seen ANZ continuing to invest in processes and policies to uplift awareness and improve gender equality. ANZ has a number of initiatives and programs to support gender equality, including gender balanced recruitment practices, where we can ensure at least one female candidate is interviewed. And also from the other side, we make sure at least one female is included in the interview panel. We also promote flexible work, which has been received very well, especially during COVID, as working parents have found it difficult to navigate. We also have a return to work program, which helps individuals, particularly women, return back to work after taking career breaks. There are notable women program, which focuses on building confidence and capability of our senior female leaders in both traditional and social media. There's also accelerating banking experience for women, which is a rotational program for female managers to develop and broaden their banking careers. There's also a panel pledge in which our CEO has committed to ensuring gender balance being considered in all internal and external speaking events. And we also have employee networks that focus on gender balance issues. And in Korea, we also have a local employee network called Forward, which provides a support and encouraging environment for staff to move forward and upward in their careers. Forward Korea also holds events throughout the year, which promotes gender equality, which is very well received by the team here. Last year, year 2020, was an important milestone year for ANZ. with the Group Executive Committee achieving a 50-50 gender balance for the first time. Whilst this was a fantastic achievement, but there's still a level of gender imbalance in senior and middle management roles within the banking industry, and ANZ is no exception to this. To address this, ANZ has set a target, which is to build diversity and inclusive workforce by increasing representation of women in leadership to 34%, up from 32.5%. And the target is set annually each year. And this is also published publicly for our stakeholders to track us against this as well. I believe in order for us to achieve gender balance in roles across the banking industry, and particularly in senior management roles, we need to continue to foster and develop female talent from an early stage in their career. Whilst many companies like ANZ have and are adopting policies to support gender equality, especially in the hiring process, we should introduce more programs and initiatives to foster female talent, to help them build a career by providing coaching and mentoring so more female talent can put their hands up. Without a strong pipeline of upcoming female talent, it will be difficult for us to achieve a meaningful level of gender balance in senior roles. Having grown up in New Zealand, the topic of and the importance of gender equality was well known and understood from an early age. New Zealand was the first country in the world to make women eligible to vote, and also had a number of female prime ministers. My first line manager in ANZ and the skip line manager were both female. And personally, I've had family friends and where the mum was a breadwinner and the dad was a stay-at-home dad. Well, whilst New Zealand isn't perfect in terms of gender equality, it would be fair to say that it is ahead of Korea, with women representing 30% of company boards versus 2.1% in Korea. However, we need to acknowledge that New Zealand did have a long head start, and it would take considerable time and effort to achieve gender equality. We need to be persistently raise awareness and introduce programs to accelerate this movement. And I think, as Joe mentioned earlier, based on the Global Gender Gap Report, which was released last year, it predicted that it would take another 100 years for us to achieve gender equality. This is way too long, and we all need to do our part to shorten this. With this, I look forward to sharing and discussing with the panelists on some of the key issues and initiatives for today's session. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Alfred. And we really look forward to drawing out some of the learnings from New Zealand and how we can move the meter a little bit in Korea. So thank you very much. All right, Felix, I'll throw to you now for a bit of your introduction.
Thank you very much, Joe. Firstly, a very special thank you to you for the introduction and for the Australian Chamber of Commerce of organizing this webinar. I do believe this is a really important topic. As mentioned, my name is Felix Busch. I'm the General Manager at Millennium Hilton Seoul, which is managed by Hilton Worldwide. Hilton Worldwide operates in 119 countries and territories, and we have over 6,400 hotels globally. From a team member perspective, Hilton employs 425,000 team members across the whole world. And as you can imagine, with such a large number of team members, diversity and inclusion is a really big key focus for us at Hilton. Hilton, over the past 10 years, has been recognized in multiple countries for their achievements in creating great working conditions and really focusing on diversity and inclusion. So just very recent, we were certified again as a great place to work in the US, and we are going to carry this forward to other countries, including Korea. So with regards to gender equality, in 2010, Hilton launched globally diversity and inclusion framework to really laser focus on how we as an organization can foster female talent and bring more balance into our leadership. I think instead of talking a lot about the big corporate viewpoint, I think it's more interesting to see what we do locally. And with that, we have 3 key points, or I have 3 key points which I would like to share with you. The first one is really related to fostering local talent by having a Japan and Korea Micronesia organized annual leadership conference, where every of our hotels in our region is sending between 10 to 20 team members and female team members. So during this conference, not only there's a great network opportunity for female high potentials and female leaders, but it's also an opportunity for us over the 2 days to really help those ladies and future leaders to be equipped. This is from a range of training, upskilling training, but also from motivational speakers from successful women in our region, in Japan and in Korea, to learn on how to overcome some of the hurdles they have had. The second point, which I believe is really crucial, is about breaking the barriers. I found, especially in a very male-dominated Asian culture like Japan or Korea, the middle manager, which is often male, can be a real roadblock for success and female leaders growing up in an organization. So as a result of that, around 3 years ago, we introduced across Japan and Korea a consistent training which called Breaking the Barriers for the Middle Managers, where the first day is really about opening the eyes, focusing on unconscious bias, and then the second day to help those male middle managers to understand how can they support growth of our female young talent in order to grow in our organization. And the third point, which is really important, is to actually establish who are the high potentials and how can we help them locally by a local group organized in a hotel of upskilling, empowering, and really, once you identify, really foster them how to grow and sponsor them into new roles. So there are some of the 3 key activities we have introduced many years ago, and Hilton across Japan and Korea Micronesia is keeping this alive. This is really, really important for us and for our culture. Before I go more into details later on, I want to share with you some fun facts underlying the challenges we have in Korea. So if I look into my hotel, we are employing 413 team members, and 30% of those team members are female, which is, I think, not too bad. However, if we then look into the hierarchy levels of our organization, we can see that as much as we come higher up into the organization, the percentage of female leaders or female team members is reducing. And I think this is really where the difficulty sits in driving change. My leadership team, I have 20% of my leaders are female. The level below, which is the head of department, is also only 20%. And only once we come to the team leader, we see that we come to 32% of our team members are female. And I think it really highlights that there's a lot of team members who are trying to grow up, but they are blocking, they are not able to make the next step up. So I think this is one of the key observations I have, and I think it's interesting to see this data. Now, one last point before I hand over for the introduction. In 2021, so this year, I promoted 25 team members in my hotel, and out of this 25 team members, 7 were female leaders, which is 28%. So we are working slowly on increasing the percentage of female leaders in my organization, and this is really very much local done here in Seoul.
Thanks, Felix. And I think there's already a question for you around the similarities and differences in Korea and Japan. So we're looking forward to you sharing some of that insight, and good to see the German in you had some fun facts for us all as well. Awesome. Thanks so much, Felix. All right, I'll pass over to Ken now for his introduction. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Jo, and thank you, AustCham, for the opportunity to speak today on this very important topic. My name is Ken Nam. I'm off counsel with the Seoul office of Herbert Smith Freehills, or HSF as we call ourselves in a more abbreviated way. I guess, look, to be honest and look fully frank, I think the law and legal services industries and law firms in particular where we belong, we haven't had we had a reputation and record for being quite slow on gender balance and workplace equality. I think it's there's no hiding that fact. And whilst there's been significant progress made over the years, it remains a work in progress for us, and there's a lot to catch up on from our perspective, and perhaps compared to some of the other fields of endeavor and many who are represented in this forum today. So look, I'm actually keen to learn more from this forum myself, but also share some of the success or some of the areas where we've had mixed success and where the challenges still remain. And I guess it was one of the issues was to talk about what we as a company, as a firm, have been doing. I'm happy to sort of give a brief outline as per Alfred and Felix ahead of me. And what we have been doing is from about 10 years ago, we have put in place a gender strategy. And there's actually a business need for us in the sense that, and as many people would know, that there are more female law students coming through the ranks, and more female law students in law schools, and as I said, coming through the ranks. But it's the pattern we've been detecting is that they weren't being retained as they go through the ranks in the promotions and in the leadership roles. And one internal research that we've had was that it takes a female lawyer 1.5 years longer than their male counterpart to achieve partnership, which is one of the promotion criteria, promotion levels, even after including for parental leave. So there's something going on here, and I think Felix mentioned unconscious bias, and I think we can probably talk about that a little bit more. And there's a lot of research, and there's a lot to discuss on that. But so even without sort of taking out the parental side of things, there was still a barrier or a blocker, and the all too common narrative was of that sort of mid-level or senior level female solicitor or lawyer leaving the firm due to the challenge to balance work and family life. Obviously from a business perspective alone, this is a brain drain. This is, we invest a lot in training and skilling up for our lawyers, and to lose that talent and resource is a significant business issue. So I mean, to try and implement some of this or instigate some change, one of the things we had done at our firm was in 2014 we set some gender targets, and I can share that as we are seeking to have 35% women partners and leaders, partners who are leaders by 2023. And we've made some good progress on that. And one of the sort of pleasing statistics is that in Asia, where obviously Seoul belongs, we currently have 31% of the partnership being women, which is a significant improvement from 18%, which is back in 2014 when we first started this sort of active journey on gender balance in the promotion ranks. But as I mentioned, there's still a lot to. It's still a work in progress and a continuing journey. And for example, our women partners in leadership roles remains at 26%, which is lower than our target of 35. Very interested to hear. It was very interesting to hear like the sort of internal programs that Hilton and ANZ have been putting in place, and happy to discuss further. I guess just from our perspective, some of the things that we've been trying to do or implementing is, we've announced a shared parental leave policy of 24 weeks, which is 6 months, and it's gender neutral. So it's for both spouses to be able to and to be able to take that leave. And I believe it's actually one of the more sort of market leading policies in the region and for our industry. Another focus area is to try and identify and address biases in the promotion and reward decisions, and also talent identification in the pipeline for our business. And then thirdly, I could probably talk about it a little bit further, is an active sponsorship for female talent in our company. But anyway, I'll pause there, and I'll leave it for Andrew to talk about his side of the business as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ken. And I think you've got some great insights to share, having worked almost, in Australia and Korea in the same firm, and some of the differences and challenges that you see. So thanks so much, Ken. And yes, over to Andrew.
Sure. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again, Joe, for the warm introduction and this opportunity to engage with senior leaders for the gender equality in our respective fields. Hopefully I can bring a number of perspectives to this discussion today, principally as a senior male leader in a large Australian business working in Korea, but with perspective from over a decade in Australia, but also as a husband and a father with a daughter and a son. So, I can appreciate what you mentioned, Joe, about your daughter's perspectives. Like, it's quite interesting to hear that. Being an employee of Macquarie, we're fortunate that our CEO is Shamara Wipranayake, who's our CEO and Managing Director, and she's leading the world's largest infrastructure asset manager and advisor with a really globally diverse workforce. Alongside Shamara, half of our division heads are led by females, and approximately 40% of our group board are female directors. Macquarie has placed a significant focus on building and nurturing what is an inclusive and diverse culture across the group, which is seeking to ensure equality for everyone, no matter the gender, the ethnicity, the race, religion, sexual orientation, etc. And I believe that everyone will recognise that culture is embodied in the people, and being a senior leader, championing this equality is an important part of nurturing the culture within an entity. And never more so is this important with the challenge we face in Asia. And I think Macquarie and also Blueleaf shares the same challenges that are outlined by Alfred, Felix and Ken with the representation of females in Asia. Just to give you a few statistics, for instance, as well, in Korea and Asia more broadly, while approximately 44% of our staff in the region are female, only 19% in Korea and 26% in Asia are actually director level. And so it's the same challenge that Felix particularly identified. At Blueleaf, it's even worse. It's an engineering, construction, asset management type business by its heritage. Only 29% of staff are female and only 4% are director level. And I can probably tell you who those probably two to three people are. And as a case in point, most recently, I was talking to one of the division heads here, just in Korea, who's a female, as the representative director, and saying, oh, where's this particular female transaction executive at the moment? And she said, oh, she quit last week to pursue other career opportunities and to study, realizing how challenging the industry was. And that's just endemic. And it just shows us the challenge we have, particularly where we know in Korea, the female participation rate in the OECD is one of the lowest by Korea. So reflecting on where we sit in Asia today and our topic of male champions of change, I actually attended a breakfast forum, if you can remember them, in 2014 or 2015 with Elizabeth Broderick, who was the then Australian Sex Discrimination Commissioner, and subsequently she was the founder of the Male Champions of Change Coalition in Australia. And in that room were senior leaders from their respective professions. And Elizabeth took the stage and simply said, and looked around the room and referenced how few females were in that room. And that there was just, there's the challenge. Why is, we've just got a room full of males. And what would be interesting, I guess, would be to see, even on today's session, how many females versus males we have on this, in this discussion today. So then fast forward, back at that, there was Gordon Cairns was one of the first male champions. So he was someone that you could see was a senior male leader. He sat on numerous boards in Australia, and he ultimately sits now on our board of Macquarie Group today. And then you fast forward to today, the gender imbalance in Asia, hopefully our male champions can start bringing our experiences to bear and to make some change.
For your initial insight. So we're going to have a few conversations around some of the questions. Thanks to those attendees who sent in some pre-organised questions. We'll cover those now. I'll target a few questions to the panel and then we'll open up to Q&A after that. So one of the questions was, what do you see as the biggest hurdle for new female leaders in your organisation? So new leaders that are females coming up, key hurdles that they have. Does anyone in particular want to answer this one?
Maybe I can start on with this. I do believe it's always one of these points where when you ask team members, who's ready? Are you ready? And you ask a group of male and female, you tend to have a lot of men who put their hand up and say, oh, of course I'm ready. And then you have a group of female leaders who are very maybe humble or too conservative, and they say, maybe next time, or maybe in 6 months or 12 months, then I feel more comfortable. And I have observed this in particular in Asia, where a lot of incredible female team members or high potentials would say, oh, no, I don't feel ready yet. And this is where I believe we as a leader in our organization can make the difference by saying, well, I believe that you're ready and I will help you to go into this next role and make the decision for them and create an environment where they have the opportunity to grow into this by giving them a training plan, by giving them a support structure, by, for example, a female coach who helps them how to behave in this still very male-dominated environment, and combined with a mentor, which in many cases is myself, especially for the high potentials in our organization, to then enable them to grow and be successful. I think this is really, really, really important in order to make change. If you ask team members, unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of males are more self-confident, and we need to help the female talent to be not as shy and not as humble, but pushy. And I think when we talk later on about different countries, I think Australia is very different to Asia, whether or not it's Japan or Korea, where if I would have asked a question in Sydney, I think the ladies would have been equally or more aggressive pushing forward, where in Asia, it's unfortunately the opposite. Key for me is to understand this so we can make the difference.
Yeah. And I think that, thanks, Felix. And I agree, it's something, so you're saying basically one of the biggest hurdles is that self-belief or self sort of backing yourself, which there was an interesting study a couple of years ago, I think by Harvard and Wharton together, looked at female and males self-evaluations of themselves in terms of how they went. And basically, I think I have the stats, it was something like males, they did a test and then they said how they went on that test, and 61% of males said they did a great job and 46% of females said they did a great job, and they actually scored pretty much the same, or the females a bit higher. So I think there is this, and with our clients we see it all the time, where self-evaluations, your annual performance reviews, the females always underdo themselves, whereas the males kind of, yep, I did an awesome job at all of it, you know, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. So other panelists, do you see that those sorts of behaviours in your organisations as well when doing performance reviews? I can see grins from both Alfred and Andrew. Is that something you see? Alfred?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I agree with the comments that's been shared and the self-assessment, the difference between gender. I think that's definitely exists there. I just wanted to touch a little bit more on the point that Felix raised about the need for mentors and coaches, because from my perspective, I see that as one of the largest hurdles Not saying that we don't have any female leaders, but I think there lacks a certain diversity or a mixed range of female leaders that young and upcoming leaders can aspire to. Based on what I've seen, there's almost seems to be like a box approach. So, if you want to be a senior female leader, you need to adopt some of the male traits, and when you adopt those, and it will help you to become more senior in an organization. Whereas for males, including myself, when I have mentors, I have mentors from a diverse range of backgrounds and views. I think we're missing that for the young and upcoming female leaders, because some of the members I talk to, they don't want to aspire senior roles because they will be perceived as a type of a leader, and they don't necessarily want to fit into that. But you can be, not saying males are not compassionate, but you can be a compassionate leader. You can be yourself and still progress up the chain. And I think to support that, we need to have the right mentors and coaches available to really encourage them. So that's my interpretation.
It's actually an interesting point you raised, Alfred, there about, you can, I think the way we look at it is you can bring your whole self to work. And there's what we've now looked at is creating an environment of psychological safety where you can be yourself at work, and that creates the environment of equality. And because you're going to have such a diverse range of staff and colleagues that you're working with. And then as a part of that also goes to Felix's points about how do we support females in the enterprise. Particularly, we need to give them an environment where they do feel safe, that they can lead, that they can raise questions, that they can take the approach that historically males would just be very direct, but we're going to be allowing them to raise concerns and escalate issues and lead the way they see fit as well. And they feel that they can do that. That's the environment we need to create for them. And then on the this over-assessment, the self-confidence that males may bring to their own evaluations. I mean, we constantly refresh our performance appraisal process, and even most recently over the last 12 months we've reassessed the way that we self-rate ourselves to remove how many scores we can give ourselves and just keep it to more a discussion than necessarily a number. And then there's a calibration session anyway that allows the bosses who have been trained to identify these biases that can look to calibrate people across the region and across the world.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I think that taking the bias out of it is a challenge for many people. So doing that is great. All right, thank you, everybody. The next question we had was around how do you foster female leadership or female future talent in a male-dominated Asian environment with a focus on sex and age and titles? So how can we sort of promote these up-and-coming female leaders through this? Anyone want to start?
I might start on that one. Well, actually, I think we also need to challenge the notion that Asia is somehow more male-dominated than the West. I think, and from our own statistics at our firm, it's somewhat embarrassing to note, but we are lagging in terms of female partner representation in the US, UK, and Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And Asia is actually doing better. I mean, these are stats, and I don't want to dwell on stats. And the more you peel into the stats, the more sort of different stories you get. But I think it's important not to sort of have a broad brush view on things. I'm sorry, I'm not challenging the question, but I'm just wanting to sort of challenge the notion that that Asia is somehow poorer than other regions or other countries or other societies. But having said that, look, I think perhaps the agenda of gender equality isn't as high on the agenda or commonplace as who's feeling, say New Zealand, as Alfred mentioned, or even Australia. And I think there's a need to sort of push that agenda. Look, I don't have a silver bullet, but I think leading by example. I mean, it's a hard task, but leading by example, and I think everyone here, is talking about it and is trying to do that in their own way. And for us, and this sort of touches on another topic that you were alluding to, Joe, but us as sort of Australian and international employers and companies in Korea, by sort of leading by example and demonstrating by action, I think that we hopefully, or optimistically, we're seen as an employer of choice, and then that through that we attract the talent, or we attract the good people, and the word spreads, and that actually has a business benefit as well. And I can just say from our anecdotal, whenever we have a placement opening, we get droves of applicants who on paper look fantastic, and lots of female applicants as well. And from that we get the talent, and we grow. Secondly, I think Felix is also and touching on this as well, but perhaps we need to try and create that sort of supporting environment or infrastructure such that females can be more assertive. They feel more comfortable. I think the language Andrew used was a psychological safety. I think, again, if there was a silver bullet, I'd love to tell you about it. But if we can try and do that, but there may be a need for some artificial change, that some top-down change to try and implement some of that. And I think maybe. Again, I think Felix, you mentioned sort of trying to foster that middle management, and Alfred yourself about sort of sponsoring potential female talent, and maybe we can talk about that in a different question setting. But maybe something like that can help sort of achieve more gender balance.
Yeah, great points, Ken. I think it's I like how you guys are all almost pained at trying to resolve some of these issues in each of your organisations, but I think the more that we talk about it, the more that we can, address some of these things. Sorry, Andrew, did you have something you wanted to add? Unmuting yourself. No? Okay, cool.
No, sorry. To Ken's point, we get lots of applicants, but the way that we've recently augmented our approach to fostering talent, or finding future talent as well, because we're trying to be more proactive with building the understanding of the industry in which we work, the challenges that the industry brings. We know that the types of industries we all work are high performance cultures. And so we've gone back to utilizing actually the power of social media, where there's the research on LinkedIn, for instance, is greater than 40% of active engagements on LinkedIn are female, and there's a huge pool of people to go and target, and identifying through LinkedIn female future talent and engaging with them one-on-one with other females within the organization, just with virtual coffee chats or something like that, is something that we've started to do to build earlier the understanding of Macquarie and the career path and the career trajectory to a senior leadership position.
Great. That's a great way of doing it, actually. Trawling LinkedIn. All right, thanks, Andrew. There's another question for you, Felix, which was many times that we've heard leaders or managers speak about mentoring and supporting female staff members, and you've talked about it yourself already today. Can you explain how you handle this specifically? So talk us through how you would work with one of your team to do that mentoring.
Yeah, I briefly mentioned this earlier, whereby you, instead of coaching or mentoring, is really of making a decision for some future leaders and help them to overcome their fright and their uncertainty, and promote them into this role by making the decision for them. So I think this is really, really crucial, and this is the only way of fast-tracking change, because we know, especially in Korea, where you have an employment for life structure, where it takes much longer for people organically to exit an organization because they are staying in the same organization for 35 years. You really need to try to fast track, and by doing that is by sponsoring team members and cherry picking them and putting them into the next role, whether or not they maybe feel they're right or not, but create then the environment where they have the training and they have the support.
Yeah, right.
I think one point. Sorry, one point I would add to that, which comes back to Alfred, who mentioned about the mentor and the coach, and to have a mentor and a coach who are actually doing the job as a mentor and coach. And I think it's sounds maybe a little bit naive, but I do believe that the training element is really important, not only for the female high potential, but also for the coach and the mentor, to understand how do I need to mentor and how do I need to coach somebody so they're successful. And it's often taken for granted that maybe a senior member of the staff knows how to do that, but they enter the company 15, 20, maybe 25 years ago, and their education process has been such a long time ago that it's really important to look at the training development also for those who are then doing the mentoring and coaching and sponsoring.
And I think that's regardless of whether you're a male or a female mentor or coach, what you can do to sponsor that person. Yeah. What about some of the other panel members in terms of specific examples of someone that you've advocated for or mentored or coached to help sort of progress? Have you got any good stories for us?
It's hard to provide an example when I've had such few females that have worked underneath me, unfortunately. There's been instances where, we have a range of female talent in the junior pools, and I continue to support them through review processes and supporting them in their development and ensuring that they are getting a diverse experience within the group. And ultimately, they make a decision anyway, regardless, to leave and start families. Now, I guess this brings up the whole other question around, well, how do we bring people back to work? And maybe that's one of the challenges in Australia. There's these great, I think Alfred and everyone's referenced this, the back to work policies of Australian companies. I know when my wife was at one of the big commercial banks in Australia, there was no woman left behind, I think was one of the policies, and they would continue to pay superannuation whilst on maternity leave, because there was a recognition that not paying it for that 1 to 2 years possibly would see a huge disparity in the ultimate pension at the end of the 65 years. And so they continued to pay it. That's just a small thing to help them know that they're not going to be left behind during even like a childbearing years. But then there's the other come back to work opportunities. Ken mentioned it, paternity and maternity leave matching now, so that there's both males and females can take the time off that they need. So what Korea may need to look at is just policy as well about bringing people back to work. And I think we all know the statistics that now the birth rate's below 1 in Korea, and it's going to be a problem because people are leaving families till later. So maybe it's just something that needs to be policy driven too.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andrew. Sorry, I've just got the 10-minute run along message. So we might throw to some of the audience questions now. So we had a question from Berku who said, a specific one for you, Felix. Based on my experience with Hilton, I can justify that Hilton does accelerate when it comes to female empowerment in leadership. But as you also mentioned, the higher you go in the corporate ladder, the less you see females filling the executive level roles. What do you think are the causes of this?
Well, I think in particular, if I look at this in the Korean context, you have a lot of team members who are not moving out in order to enable new talent to move up. So I think Korea and Japan, they're both very similar in that extent, that you have the employment of live thinking. And in order to create change, you also need to create an environment where senior or middle managers and senior leaders are willing to move and explore something different. I give the example in hospitality, where in Australia, people would move after 2 years to go to a competitor to learn something new. And in Korea, in my hotel as an example, where the average employment is over 22 years, it takes a long time for the manager job to be available. And I think this is where it's really difficult to accelerate the change. Now, in our content of Hilton, the easiest or fastest way to accelerate this change is by growing our organization. We announced today one of our new properties in Seoul opening this summer. We have other hotels in the pipeline. And now the key is for us to help team members who are ready or who are high potential female team members to be put into those new properties to grow. And this is where we then can outpace the normal length it takes for people to retire.
Great. Thanks, Felix. Good answer. All right. There's quite a few more from the same person, but I might move to someone else's question, which is, I used to work in a company which set the target for female in management teams, like 20% in 2020. What are the pros and cons for this quota type system? And have you seen any of your companies following this trend, or especially, I guess, here in Korea? So we've all talked about percentages. Are there quotas in each of your organizations?
Hi, Joe. You go ahead.
Okay.
No, you go.
So for ANZ, we do have targets at a group company level. And also as part of the recruitment process, as mentioned earlier, we ensure that there's at least one female candidate being considered, as well as on the interview panel, where we have at least one female interviewer. I think there's definitely pros and cons associated with setting fixed targets. The pros, in my view, is that it brings the the initiative or the drive to ensure gender equality and equal opportunities, bring that up front, so that as an organization you can address it. However, I think there's also a perception which gets formed that sometimes the roles are being given or promotions are given to females because of their gender. Now, based on my personal experience, I think that perception is wrong. I think it is where I've seen promotions and new roles is really based on meritocracy. And I think we need to do our part as leaders to break down that perception and reinforce that when we do hire, promote female leaders, it's based on merit and the capabilities and the potential, and break that down, because I think having spoken to female leaders and employees, they really hate to be categorized that they got the role or got the promotion just because of their gender. So I think it's important that we have consistency around that.
Great, thanks, Alfred. Yeah. Anyone else? I know Andrew and Ken both wanted to answer that one as well in terms of target.
Yeah, Joe, just briefly, and appreciate Alfred's comment. And I think that quota issue was discussed in the earlier panel session as well, and on the pros and cons. So I just wanted to sort of draw that discussion as well. But look, I think we're trying to create change here. We're trying to challenge. So I think to some extent, change has to come, and it's probably in our context that as I introduced, we probably don't have a quota per se, but but more targets. But as I said, I think change leads to change, so we have to change. I think that's the challenge, and look, I think this agenda is well, don't want to grandiose the whole thing, but like this is about correcting one of the deep-seated injustices in our workplaces. So we have to create change. That's all I just wanted to add.
Great. Thanks, Ken. And we are out of time, but it's a really good point. It did come up in the previous one, and I think where we ended up was talking about the fact that having targets rather than quotas, so it doesn't feel like it's a forced. You're forcing people into just to meet a quota versus let's try and establish some targets that we want to achieve. Because what's measured gets managed, right? So if it's on the top of mind, then you do think about it, but let's not actually focus too much on that. So thank you all of you for your input and sharing the stories. I think it's been a great session. I didn't realize how quickly it went. I thought we had 90 minutes for some reason. So I could talk about this all day, but I'm sorry to those of you that have asked questions that we didn't get to. We'll share them with the panelists and maybe even revert back. I don't know, Rowan, is there a way we could sort of make sure we respond to those? But thank you all for your time today. I'll pass over to Rowan to close up.
So just to wrap up today's session, I'd like to first thank Joe Billing, our moderator, has done a fantastic job both last month and today, and our 4 very special guest speakers, Alfred Bae from ANZ, Felix Busch from Millennium Hilton Seoul, Ken Nam from Herbert Smith Freehills, and Andrew Wagner from Blueleaf Energy Asia, who are great supporters of AustCham Korea and also the business community. So thanks everyone for joining in, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.